Welcome to the Elevate Report, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's fantastic to be on with you once again. It's a beautiful Monday morning, and there was a lot of news breaking, including which Mark Carney is now on the record with Doug Ford saying, I think I hear you, Doug Ford. I think calling an early election sounds really good. We'll be talking about that story that's broken on Globe and Mail this morning. On top of everything that's been happening this weekend in terms of Jamil Javani reporting what happened in D.C. last week, the likes of Shay Freeland going on Bill Maher on Friday night, the fallout over the weekend, and how all this comes together and impacts our politics here at home in our beautiful nation of Canada. On top of that, it's always good to have the Winter Olympics going on at this current time. Additionally, we had the Super Bowl last night, and there were some conversations around that as well. So there's a lot happening today on top of what's impacting the show, of changing the name to a degree, a slight twist, and kind of maturing, growing up. We are essentially moved from the Elevate podcast to the Elevate Report. We are now spelling the word elevate as a normal human being now instead of a trashy tech bro. And so here we are. I'm very happy to be made the change, and a lot of people are asking why. Why are we doing this, Josh? Why changing the show? Why changing the name? And part of the reason is because, well, the show started out as being a business podcast, talking about design, marketing, and business. That was where everything started. And so it made sense to be called the Elevate Podcast and be spelled in a kind of quirky way. And then it kind of moved into politics and taking a more serious perspective on politics in our country and where things are at. And so it made sense to start shifting into a direction that matched what we were covering. So we made sure to keep some brand equity in terms of keeping the word elevate, but wanted to move it to the Elevate Report. And, well, if people are rattled by it, that's okay. I'm really surprised. We're getting close. We're getting, 60-40 on the poll today? We got 65... Oh, sorry, more 66% who like it, 31% who say, I do not care. I'm okay with that. I was expecting people saying, this sucks, get out of the way. And so this is kind of where things are at this morning, we are moving the show together. So fantastic. This is kind of where, I know some people are kind of feeling specific ways about stuff. And so that's how this goes. I want to give one heads up to our moderators, who are amazing beautiful moderators this morning. We do not want to be taking out messages or deleting messages with people who have a different perspective than us. We want to, only time we're deleting messages if someone's actively spamming the chat or threatening people. Anything outside of that, we will not be deleting. And if it does delete, we'll have to deal with that later. However, I just want to give a brief warning to our moderators. We are not deleting messages of people who have a different perspective than us. That's just not going to happen. We want to make sure we are encouraging discourse in the chat, and especially from people who don't see things the way we do. But if they're actively spamming and harassing people, that's a different story. Give them the boot. So that's kind of the focus and what I wanted to kind of give a heads up before we move into our first story of the day. And it looks like we have enough people in. Let's get this party started, shall we? All right. So the story that's breaking this morning. Actually, sorry, before I do that, just because I thought it was funny. Jason Kenney getting roasted today. Getting roasted on this beautiful Monday morning. He said this last night: best Super Bowl halftime show ever. Flame emoji. Celebrating the unbridled joy and energy of Latino culture, which is a big, beautiful part of American culture. 1,000 times better than that embarrassing show by The Weeknd a couple years ago. Oh, man. The reason why this is funny, because first off, I thought The Weeknd did a good show a handful of years ago. I thought it was fantastic. It was during COVID and all of that. I thought it was great. He used the whole stadium. It was awesome. And what I found funny is that, he's trying so hard to virtue signal here. So hard. Like, oh, look how awesome and progressive this is so beautiful. While throwing a Canadian artist in front of the bus. Throwing him under the bus at the same time. Like, this guy's a Cheeto through and through, eh? Conservative in name only, Jason Kenney. I don't know how anyone takes this man seriously whatsoever. This guy just keeps getting L after L after L after L and continues to take them. All right, yeah, okay. Yeah, Canada first, baby. Yeah, we're just going to throw the Canadian artist under the bus. Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, now let's get into our first story of the day, shall we? We move forward here. This is wild this morning. If you aren't annoyed with Doug Ford enough, well, you're about to get very annoyed with him even further here. It says here, Carney Ford discussed idea of an early federal election to secure a majority, sources say. Here it goes. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford have discussed the possibility of an early federal election in casual conversations about the importance of a majority mandate to deal with uncertain economic times, according to 3 sources. Those sources said the progressive conservative premier, who has forged a close relationship with the Liberal leader, offered his opinion that the country needs economic stability. One of the sources familiar with the discussion said Mr. Ford told Mr. Carney that an election is an opportunity to win a clear majority mandate, but the source stressed that Mr. Ford's comments should not be seen as an endorsement of the federal Liberals, who are currently 2 seats shy of a majority. Really? We just want to make sure, you should call an election, Carney. You could secure a majority, we can get economic stability. However, this shouldn't be seen as an endorsement. Get out of my face. What are these people saying? Mr. Carney has previously said publicly that he's not considering a snap election, and his office repeated that assertion on Sunday. Okay, I'll believe when I see it. We're not going to the polls, that the Prime Minister has clearly said in his media availability. His spokesperson said Audrey Champoux told the Globe and Mail, referring to January 26 comments from Mr. Carney in which he said he was focused on results for Canadians. Mr. Ford's office declined to comment. Surprise, 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 surprise. And this is the part why I'm like, I don't necessarily believe it, because we go down here. The first source said the 2 leaders have also discussed the respective poll numbers, including those that show Mr. Carney is much farther ahead in personal popularity than Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. A separate source, who is a participant at the First Minister's meeting, said there was a lot of joking around among the Prime Minister and Premiers over federal polling numbers. The source said there was also a good deal of speculation around the Premiers about an early election. The Globe and Mail is not naming the sources, and they are not authorized to speak publicly about private discussions. So here's the thing. All the premiers are speculating that we're probably going to get an early election. A lot of the politicos in Ottawa are speculating we're going to be getting an early election. We've been talking about on our show that we're seeing the signs of a potential early election coming this year. But the only person who said that's not going to happen is Mr. Mark Carney, the Liberal Party. I'm sorry. I have a strong feeling that I don't believe him. When everyone around you saying, hey, we're probably going to an early election, but you're the one saying, no, we're not going to call an election because that would be politically inconvenient and not be good for you if you did that, I tend not to believe you. I'm sorry. But this is the most frustrating part about it. Is, again, Ford's like, do what I did, essentially, is what Doug Ford's saying here. Do what I did. Go to the people. I was trying to have a strong hand on Donald Trump. So I went to the people and got a majority. Again, I go back to something Jamil Giovanni said on election night last year. Who were you running against? You were running against Crombie and Stephen Del Duca or whatever his name was. Who are those people? Crombie's not even the leader of the Liberals anymore. You ran against nobodies. We could have run a conservative sack of potatoes and still won that election. You did nothing. However, here we are. Oh, do what I did. Be tough on Trump. Call an election. You need a majority mandate. And we've been hearing that a lot. And the fascinating part is talking about going to the people and getting a mandate. I'm hearing that term a lot lately thrown around on CTV, CBC, and the like. I'm like, I'm sorry. You gaslit me from the time of the last election saying that we have a mandate from the Canadian people to build things at crazy speeds. It's going to be awesome. We have a mandate. You said we have a mandate. And I said, no, you don't. I'm sorry. A minority government is not a mandate. I'm sorry. It's not. The only mandate you really have is to get a deal with Donald Trump. Get a deal on USMCA CUSMA. That's the real mandate you have. That was shared across political lines. That's the true mandate. And you still haven't done that. Still haven't done that. So you tell me what the mandate is. Why do you need a mandate, a renewed mandate? Why? It's fascinating, isn't it? Because this is what the issue I have with a lot of this is the argument the Liberals are going to be making here shortly, I'm sure, is we need a majority. We need a majority to be able to deal with Donald Trump. Even though to deal with Donald Trump, you've gotten the green light from Parliament. Everybody in Parliament is saying, yes, do whatever you need to do to secure a deal with Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, what are we at? 2 months from a year? We're about 10 months since the election now at this point? About 10 months now? And still nothing? That was the true mandate you had, and you still had nothing to do. So the argument that we need a majority mandate to get things done, sorry, doesn't pass the sniff test. And the argument that we've seen in Parliament to start the year is Liberals saying, the Conservatives just won't work with us. They are not participating with us. They are getting in the way. Get on board, they say. Get on board with what? The Conservatives have been actually trying to help where they can, where it actually helps the constituents and helps Canadians abroad or across the board. You aren't moving. You're not moving. So this is the thing we have to talk about when it comes to stuff like this, right? Because the Conservatives have been in good faith. They actually helped pass Bill C-5 last year. And remember, the argument around Bill C-5 last year was the fact that you could just repeal these controversial bills that are causing disruption to us getting product to market and building things in this country. But Carney's like, no. We want to keep those bills on the books. I just need a bill that will allow me to circumvent those bills when I see fit. And the Conservatives are like, wow, that sounds really stupid. But for the sake of you saying you're going to get things done at speeds we've never seen before, and you say you need Bill C-5 to get that done, okay, we'll give you Bill C-5. And they passed Bill C-5. What have they done with Bill C-5? I wouldn't say nothing, but it's been close to nothing. They are not moving at the speeds they promised. They are not moving at the speeds that they promised. Let's be fair to Mark Carney, though. Let's use his words from last year, and let's break down those specific issues and how he's done things to map or has pushed policy and made moves to support and improve these three critical areas he brought up in this video.
What does tangible progress look like for you when it comes to addressing cost of living concerns in this country? And will there be a barometer such as public mandate letters for Canadians to hold you accountable to?
Well, I think the way Canadians will hold account by their experience at the grocery store, when they're paying their electricity bill, when they or their children are looking for a place to live. So it will be their experiences how they will they will form those judgments, and then of course accountability comes at the ballot box.
What does tangible progress?
So you heard it there, right? Three critical areas: groceries, electricity, and housing. Those are the three areas that Canadians are going to experience that's how they're going to hold my government accountable. That's what he said there. So let's talk about those three areas and what has he done to address the issues in those areas. We'll start with groceries, shall we? Groceries. He introduced the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit. Okay. He did that. This legislation replaces and increases the GST credit. It includes a one-time top-up payment in the spring of 2026, up to $1,890 for a family of four, and a permanent 25% increase to a regular quarterly payments starting in July of 2026. So he just passed that. Remember that he just passed that this year. That just got passed. So he put that forward, and of course, that comes with criticism. Because you're not really addressing affordability and inflation issues. You're just throwing money at people. And even your own base was really upset with you just throwing more money at them. They said, can you do something about bringing prices down? Don't give us more money to try and make up for that shortfall that's just making inflation worse in our country. Don't do that. Please don't do that. And he's like, no, we're just going to give you more money. And even the money given isn't really going to move the needle much for families right now because of how expensive groceries are. But that was his move. He made that just this year, a cool 8 to 9 months after he was elected. He just passed that. Okay, he just introduced that. That was number one that he addressed in dealing with grocery prices, okay? Number two, he launched the National Food Security Strategy. They are introducing unit price labeling, which is mandatory clear pricing to help consumers compare costs and combat shrinkflation. Okay. Number 2 is the Strategic Response Fund. He's allocated $500 million to help food suppliers expand capacity and increase productivity to lower supply side costs. Okay. And then number 3, giving Competition Bureau support, increasing the Bureau's power to monitor and enforce competition in the grocery sector. Not giving them much of a mandate, not really giving them much instruction on how to do that, but just saying, do it. Everything he's done in terms of dealing with grocery prices has been the same thing of Justin Trudeau. Throw money at the issue and make inflation even worse. And then throw some nice verbiage out there to make people feel better, but nothing is really moving in those areas. We're not seeing any active moves in terms of increasing competition in our country. We saw the Conservatives bring this up. Sandra Cobina, I believe it was, who brought this up, is saying, hey, how about we have a very focused approach in bringing competition and increasing competition in our country, and rather than making it a big oligarchy that we've been seeing here lately. It is weird to me where, someone as myself lives in Nova Scotia. We have Sobeys and we have super storages under Loblaws. Those are the two guys who are fighting out here. We have a couple independent stores, but they might have 1 or 2 stores here and there. What was weird for me, and I remember this move happening way back, probably back in 2012, 2013 this happened. But it was weird for me when I traveled to Calgary and I went to Safeway. And I forgot that Sobeys purchased all the Safeways out west. And it was weird walking to Safeway with it looked like Sobeys just with a different logo. Didn't like that. Or when I went to Ontario over Christmas and I walked into Fortino's, or walked into No Frills, walked into all these different grocery chains that are all owned by Loblaws now. There's nothing independent about anything. It's 2 major players who own everything in this country. And that use government excuses, and the government gives them a lot of excuses to then jack up prices and have price fixing problems. And this is where you have the NDP saying, we need to deal with Galen West and take off his head. You hear a lot from the NDP, right? And they just don't see what's happening from a wider view. They are, pointing out a very significant issue. However, they don't look at why that issue exists. We need competition happening. We need that to be taking place. And Mark Carney and his Liberal government has not taken that seriously. So when it comes to fixing grocery prices, they've done next to nothing. I shouldn't say, they've done minimal things that are actually moving the needle for Canadians. That's why Canadians are not seeing much happen in terms of seeing price changes at their grocery stores, because very little is being done to address the issue. It's more just business as usual. That's why you're not seeing an improvement in your pricing of your eggs, your food that you're seeing at grocery stores. That's number 1. So, number 1, I'll be judged by the price of the grocery stores, not improving. Number 2, he talked about homes, dealing with homes, alleviating and making housing affordability, making housing more affordable for Canadians. So number 1, he introduced the Build Canada Homes. Remember that? That's a big one. We've been hearing that a lot. A new federal entity created to act as a developer building affordable housing on public lands. It includes $25 billion in debt financing and for prefabricated and innovative home building. So when you see that on its front and its face, it's like, okay, he's building homes. That's awesome. We want to see more homes built. Let's build Canada homes. Ooh, let's go. Prefabricated homes. Let's do it. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, GST elimination for first-time home buyers. Legislation was passed to eliminate the 5% GST on new homes up to $1 million for first-time home buyers, providing a potential savings of up to $50,000. That's actually a decent movement. That, again, was lifted to a degree from Pierre Poilievre. Thank you, Pierre, in terms of addressing that issue. So you can thank the Conservatives for that one. That one's a little bit more tangible. Still not really moving, just doing that, not totally moving the needle, but it's something. And then number three, development charge reform, a policy to cut municipal development charges in half for multi-unit residential buildings for 5 years to lower the sticker price for new apartments. So what you're seeing with Build Canada Homes, you're seeing with the development charge reform. What is the theme you are seeing here? It's all helping developers and private industry build homes, own homes, and rent to you. There is zero thought, aside from lifting a policy idea from Pierre Poilievre, to give and empower people to own their own homes. Nothing he put in there is improving homeownership. There is a degree where, yes, you are trying to alleviate housing affordability, but it's also moving at a molasses pit. It's also moving at a speed of molasses. And it's only rentals. It's going to be only rentals. And you need to move quickly because you keep immigrating people here. And again, because it's moving slow, nothing's really getting done at a scale that needs to take place. You're not seeing an improvement in housing affordability. It's not going up as fast as it once was, but it's still going up. Depends on the industry, of course. Condos are crashing in Toronto as we speak. But single family homes still maintaining or going up, increasing. Depends on the city, of course, though. So that has not improved. And then to alleviate electricity costs. Okay, he cut the carbon tax. Thank you, Pierre Poilievre. He announced his clean energy strategy, a push for $1 trillion in investment. So here's the thing. He brought this. So this was, I thought, fascinating. There's a couple of different issues here. $1 trillion in investment for his clean energy strategy. The productivity super deduction, which is a legislative change that allows for immediate expensing of capital investments in clean energy generation, manufacturing machinery, and zero-emission technologies. This significantly lowers the tax burden for companies building power plants or factories in Canada. That's a good thing. We want to lower the tax burden to bring energy into Canada and get things going, okay? That's a good thing. He introduced funding for the Ontario nuclear program. So in October 2025, Carney announced a massive investment through the Canada Growth Fund to support 4 small modular reactors at the Darlington new nuclear project. There's also legislative support for the refurbishment of the Pickering and Bruce nuclear stations to extend their life by 30 plus years. So that I think that project is a good thing in terms of getting nuclear off the ground. I think that's a good thing. Third, Nunavut and Northern Hydro. The government has allocated $3 billion to the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways Program, which includes specific provisions for hydroelectric projects and grid connections in the north to reduce reliance on diesel. So aside from the nuclear project, any project he's introduced or brought in is to bring in clean energy. To bring down electricity costs, you have to make generating electricity cheaper. But all these green energy programs are incredibly costly to implement. Thus, electricity costs are not coming down and won't be coming down anytime soon. Are you catching the theme of we go through things? All this is giving more power to private industry over your life and making life less affordable for you, while claiming that he's doing his best to do it. And as I said to start off the show, Bill C-5 was passed at the beginning of the year so that they could address these issues. Carney does have the green light from Parliament. He has the green light from Canadians to bring down electricity costs, to bring down housing costs, and bring down grocery costs. He has the green light to do these things. No one is getting in his way to do these things. But these things aren't getting done. And the Liberals are standing up in the House of Commons saying the Conservatives are getting in the way. Yet when it comes to these core issues, the Conservatives have not been in the way whatsoever. except for one bill that Liberals are holding on to and praying that continues to happen. Lisa Raitt brought this up on the CTV yet last night. This is the bill she's talking about.
Of one is.
I'm surprised Scott said yes to 2026, but not imminent. I think that what it comes down to is in that Budget Implementation Act, if the government takes a very entrenched position and refuses to change anything in there at the call of either the opposition Conservative or the NDP or the Bloc, then we may very well see the House fall. It is in the hands of the Liberals at the end of the day if they would like to take any advice from the opposition parties in terms of that Budget Implementation Act, because that is a confidence motion. So we'll end up seeing how they're going to approach it. I think it's dangerous for the Prime Minister to call an election, but I think it's not as dangerous for the House to fall on a confidence motion because you need a mandate to do certain things in the country.
It feels like
you need a mandate to get certain things done in the country. I really am I'm getting kind of sick and tired of that rhetoric right now, if I'm being quite honest with you, because it's false. Everything that was going to help Canadians, anything that's going to help workers, anything that's going to help us as a country move forward and get things done and improve affordability, the Liberals have the ability to do that right now. And they're not doing it. They're not. The claim, they're holding up all these bills. Bill C-15. Let's talk about that. The Budget Affordability Act. Budget Affordability. Essentially the Budget Implementation Act. So essentially they introduced their budget and now they're looking to implement it, and that they need to get this bill passed so they can implement what they want to do with the budget. And it's being held up because after Budget Day, if you remember, they threw in a little, hey, heads up, this is going in. And they tried to do it underneath the media's eyes, underneath the Parliament's eyes. They tried to sneak this past. And this is why it's being held up. Because they snuck in a little line that essentially would give power to the government to keep and to minimize. I shouldn't say that. I'll say this. I just want to make sure I'm cautious with my wording here. It would essentially give the government powers to exempt private industry from anything they so please aside from the criminal code. So they would be exempt from, these private industries that are paying enough money to the government, insiders, they'd give them power to bypass environmental protections, labor laws, conflict of interest regulations, all behind closed doors. That's the line they try to sneak into Bill C-15, the Budget Implementation Act. That's why it's not moving, because the government tried to sneak in a power grab for their private industry buddies. And the Conservatives said, whoa, hold up here. Can we look at this? And that's why it's being held up. It's not because the Conservatives are so big and bad and don't want anything to get done. It's that they're protecting Canada from a government taking more power and giving more power to private industry. That's an NDP perspective, isn't it? That's wild. And that's what the Liberals are saying. We need a majority mandate so we can pass that crap. This is the reality, folks. This is the reality. The Liberals have all the power they need right now. They have all the power they need right now to get things done for Canadians. But it's never been about Canadians. It's never been about us. It's all been about them increasing their power, improving their financial status, and making their friends rich. A la Brookfield. That's what this has all been about. It's all a big game. So right now, liberals are doing nothing, have been doing nothing, have done nothing with Trump, done nothing on USMCA, Kuzma, have been doing nothing in terms of improving these areas of affordability. I shouldn't say, I need to stop saying nothing. They're doing very minimal things to improve these areas. It's almost like you're kind of mailing in your homework at this point. Just get it done to say that we've done something. There's been a lack of true focus of getting these things done. But there's been a heck of a lot of focus on bills like, I don't know. Let's pull this up. Bill C2. Remember that one? Oh, we're trying to just strengthen the border, while also giving sweeping powers to our CMP and officers to search through our phones, mail, all of this. You just threw that one in there too, right? All right. That's why that one's being held up. We have the sorry, the reason I'm getting stuck is there's actually bills that are missing from here. I'm thinking about Bill C8 as well. We're just going to throw in the idea of that we can just kind of nix your telecommunications on you. That's an issue. We are going to throw in the likes of Bill C9. We're going to throw in with the likes of restricting what religious groups can read in terms of their scriptures and passages. Any of the bills that are getting gummed up in Parliament are all being opposed because somehow, some way, the Liberals have thrown in an idea, have thrown in a line that gives them more control over your life, over the lives of Canadians. And the Conservatives are opposing it. And they do it under the name of like a Bill C9, where it's like, oh, we just want to make our streets safer. Anti-hate. We all want to be anti-hate, right? We're just going to limit what you can read in your places of worship. That's what we're seeing here, folks. Is anything that's getting gummed up has been an active move to centralize authority. And if we map these different bills that are getting gummed up to grocery affordability, housing affordability, and power affordability, well, these bills that are getting gummed up don't match those core three pillars that Mark Carney brought up. None of them do. So why do you need a majority mandate? Is it because you need more power? Yes, that's exactly what you need. You need more power. You want more power. That's all this is. And I know Doug Ford's giving you all these crazy ideas that you can do it. You should do it. Look what happened in Japan. Huge majority mandate now. You don't think they're going to start getting ideas? Everything that's been brought up is essentially to centralize power. That's all. I feel like I'm repeating myself and I'll stop. But that's where we're at. They have the green light from Parliament and Canadians to address the issues that are affecting Canadians, which is affordability. Get a deal with Trump. Those things they have a mandate on to do right now. They could literally do that right now today, but they refuse. Instead, they want to stand up in the House of Commons and complain, saying the Conservatives are preventing them from doing X, Y, and Z things. No. The Conservatives are preventing them from having more power without oversight in our country. The Conservatives have given them the green light on top of the other parties, have given them the green light to go bring down grocery prices, to go bring down electricity prices, to bring down housing prices. They've given them the green light to go do those things, and they don't. Why? Because they never acted in good faith in the first place. That's why. So before we move forward, I'll address some super chats at the halfway point here. Holy jumping. Crazy Legs Life says, this one's for coffee. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it, sir. I appreciate it. That means a lot. Means a lot. Jessica says, Dougie is a loser. They both have to be stopped. Yeah, Dougie's something else, isn't he? Jessica says, get Sandra on the show. I'd love to, actually. I met Sandra at the convention. Love to get her on the show. John Gotti, T7N, says, If I'm the Conservatives, I'd call the early election talk liberal political games. Canadians don't want an election focused on getting a deal with Trump. I worry Canada's falling behind Mexico in COSMA talks. We will be addressing that here shortly. Great point there, John. Jordan English, 7289, says, love the rebrand. Thank you, boys, for all you do. Also, congratulations to Reg. Yes, shout out Reg. Jessica says, libs are melting down when Harper called Pierre the next PM of Canada in his speech. The mainstream media really wanted to make it sound he no longer supported him. Oh, they definitely did. Definitely did. Mark Glamblanco says, smart comment about the laws to slowly quiet the population. Globally, it's becoming a problem. Yes, couldn't agree more, Mark. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Because on that issue of trying to centralize focus and authority, we had the likes and also a lack of movement happening in the discussions with Donald Trump in the United States on USMCA and COSMA. The lack of conversation happening on those issues. Jamil Javani, Conservative MP, who has a relationship, I should say, with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, went down to D.C. to have some conversations. And that was that was some big talks from last week, wasn't it? Big talks from last week. And National Post wrote this. Jamil Javani, what I learned on my trip to Washington, D.C. And essentially, he was just kind of talking about the different conversations he had with GM and other officials. And essentially, because really GM is a huge plant of workers in his area, in Oshawa, Bowmanville. And he said this, last month when I visited the GM plant, I met a dedicated union leader. He was quick to share his disappointment with the news that Canada would soon be importing Chinese electric vehicles. He viewed this trade agreement with China as a sign that the federal government is giving up on Canadian auto workers. He hoped I would fight for him and his colleagues. I promised I'd do my best. The concerns expressed by GM workers about Canada's economy are shared by many. Private sector employment continues to decline, as the country is in what some economists describe as a recession watch. In the face of these very serious challenges, trade issues with the United States continue to dominate Canada's political discourse. With this context in mind, I traveled to Washington, D.C. last week. It was a whirlwind of a trip, full of excellent conversations. I had meetings with the White House and State Department, including conversations with the President, Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Senators from Montana, Ohio, and Wisconsin, as well as the United States Trade Representative, each sat down with me to share their priorities. Businesses and industries employing thousands of Canadians shared their insights with me on where Canada-U.S. trade fits into their vision for economic growth. Just a heads up. It was a positive meeting. Things were good. Open dialogue, he said. It was fantastic. But he brought this up. However, I do want to point out one key observation related to the need for strategic diplomacy. Mexico, the third partner in our trilateral trade agreement with the U.S., is further ahead in its engagement with the U.S. than Canada is. On January 28, 2026, Mexico and the U.S. announced formal talks on COSMA reforms. A week later, Mexico and the U.S. announced a joint action plan for critical minerals. Neither of these announcements included Canada, which is true. Anita Nand flew to D.C., was the only person who didn't sign on to this critical minerals deal. And this is why the Liberals are pouting, real pouty, with Jamil Javani going down to D.C. Because he doesn't expose this stuff. The Liberals are doing nothing. So they're either incredibly stupid or this is all one big game for more power. Kibosh the relationship with the U.S., kibosh discussions of trade with Donald Trump, say it's Donald Trump being unreasonable, and just throw your hands up and say, we're just not going to talk to them anymore. And then when it's time makes sense to call an election, that's what we'll campaign on. We need a majority mandate to talk with Donald Trump. Just had to let that one sit with you. That's what this reads right now. That's how it's reading. We need a majority mandate to deal with Donald Trump. Even though on February 9th, 2026, and months leading up to this day, you've had the mandate and support of the House of Commons to go and engage in those conversations with Donald Trump in the United States of America. And you haven't done that. What is a majority mandate going to help with that? So when Jamil Giovanni goes down and has a true relationship with people, Mark Carney said during the election, I know Donald Trump. I've dealt with him before. Yes, you certainly have. You certainly have. I know how to deal with him. Do you? Sitting there on the stoop of the White House saying, I wore a red tie for you. Is that what you call dealing with Donald Trump? Call me biased. That's fine. Call me one-sided. Sure. But seeing Jamil Giovanni going down and talking in D.C. was the first time I felt a little bit of ease when it came to our relationship with the U.S. in quite some time. Why do you feel that way, Josh? The reason I feel that way, because I feel like that's the first person who's gone down from Canada, aside from Danielle Smith, who's gone down in good faith and just is trying to get to the bottom of all this. And Jamil Giovanni is a very genuine person. And he took personally what's happening in his riding. And he wanted to do something about it. And Pierre Poilievre was asked, did you talk about this? Was this a conversation? And Pierre Poilievre said this. I've told my entire caucus that we are here to fight for jobs. Fight for jobs. So that's what I told Jamil Giovanni. Go down and fight for jobs. And that's what he's gone on to go do. And this was a threat to Mark Carney and the Liberals because they never thought they would actually do something like this. Which goes back to my point from during the election. The Liberals are counting on the fact they typically use fear to keep the Conservatives in check. Call them racist, call them bigots, call them anti-Canadian, call them Maple MAGA, call them all the things. That will keep them in check from doing anything that might make the Liberals look bad. And all it takes is a little chutzpah. A little ooh. And saying, you know what? Screw you. We're going to redefine the conversation. We're going to reframe this. And we're going to see what you're actually up to. And that's why the Liberals were scared. They never thought the Conservatives would actually do something like this. Now they are. Now they have. What are you going to do? Here it says Jamil Giovanni is going to go talk with the likes of Mark Carney. Going to talk with the likes of our trade representatives from Canada, Dominic LeBlanc, before he talks to the media further about what he's learned. Quite frankly, I think we're going to learn something fairly damning. We're going to learn how bad faith this Liberal Party's been acting. And the reason why I did a whole breakdown of everything Mark Carney's done is to show you that he's done little, but has had the power to do what he's needed to do to address the three core pillars. Affordability around power, affordability around housing, affordability around groceries. He has the mandate and the power from Parliament and support of Parliament to deal with those things right now. So why aren't they improving? Why aren't they improving? The thing he doesn't have support of Parliament right now is giving more power to the government to have oversight on your telecommunications, have oversight of how you spend your money, all these things. That's what they're fighting. Oversight over what you say in your worship centers. That's what the Conservatives are fighting right now. That's what Carney doesn't have confidence from the Parliament on. But when it comes to addressing affordability, he has the full support of Parliament. So why isn't it improving? That's what you have to ask. That's what you have to ask. We talked when Jamil Giovanni brought up the issue with Mexico being so much further ahead. It reminded me of what Food Professor brought up on Friday, or this was brought up. Mexico will save CUSMA for Canada, not the other way around. Mexico has outnegotiated, outwitted, and frankly outsmarted Canada at every turn, all without slipping into emotional reactions, even after Carney unilaterally renamed the Gulf of Mexico. I bring this up again because this is such a big point. Mexico has the same tariffs on them that Canada has on them right now. Same tariffs. However, Mexico is getting more products into the United States right now. Why? Why? Well, what's happening is Mexico is operating in good faith right now. They are taking a strong stance against China, which is allowing their businesses to have greater product exemptions from these tariffs to be sold into the United States than Canada does. Mexico is getting more product exemptions from tariffs in the steel industry than Canada is right now. And this is something to really think about. And I brought this up in my short, and I brought this up last week, is how emotional Canada is. You think about all the things Trump has said about Mexico over his time as a president. We're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico no more. We're going to call it the Gulf of America. All these are just like putting the thumb in the eye of Mexico. And Mexico took it in stride and said, okay, how do we work with this? How do we do it? How do we handle this? They didn't get emotional. They didn't cry. They didn't build whole electoral campaigns around it. They just said, okay, how do we get the best result for our people? And you can have your criticism about Sheinbaum all you want. But right now, Sheinbaum's doing better by her constituents in this specific issue than Mark Carney is for Canadians right now. Why? Because Canadians are emotional. Specifically, the elbows up Canadians are emotional. They're unreasonable. They cry at the faintest sign of a barb at them. Well, if you guys can't survive us putting tariffs on you, then you guys just become the 51st state. What did he say? You can't call us that. How dare you? Look at everything he said about Mexico, has done in regards to Mexico. And they've been mature and like, okay, it's stupid. Move forward. Canada has a full-blown meltdown. If you want to personify the elbows up crowd and the base that Carney's trying to placate to right now, it would be a blue-haired, crazy liberal with a septum piercing. That's how you personify the elbows up Carney base right now. So emotional, so immature, and costing Canadians jobs in the process. That is the reality that we are currently dealing with. Kate Harrison brought this up as well. It's been revealing to see the very same liberals who endorsed a bipartisan approach during the last round of COSMA negotiations rush to dismiss what Jamil is doing. The hypocrisy of official Ottawa truly never disappoints. And she's correct. It was all Team Canada until the Conservatives entered the fold. Then all of a sudden, whoa, can't do that, man. Can't do that. It's terrifying. Can't do that. And this is the thing, is I think the Liberals are catching on that the approach of America bad is starting to wane because affordability at home is not being dealt with, right? We've talked about it in the Abacus data polling, where it goes affordability, cost of living, healthcare, and Trump is fourth. It's not winning as much as it did the last election. It's still there, but not winning as much. And listen to this 2-minute clip of Freeland being on Bill Maher and listen carefully to the details. I know it's going to be hard for you to listen to, but you need to listen carefully because this is a signal to what we're likely going to see from the Liberals next.
Witnessing a rupture in the world order. He gave a very powerful speech at Davos a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure Trump didn't like that, but it seemed to be saying to a lot of the world, as you said before, we can't rely on the United States, and we seem to be driving China, into the other countries, rather, into
driving
the arms of China.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an old song, I want to be around to pick up the pieces when somebody breaks your heart. Well, we broke a lot of hearts, and China's like, I'm going to pick up the pieces.
I think it was a brilliant speech. I think it was really, really important. And I think it's really sad. And, I would say to you influential Americans, to Americans here, we really like you. Like, Canadians like America.
Yeah.
We do actually.
Oh, I know.
And we respect
And why
you.
wouldn't you?
And
We're still fucking awesome.
Actually, you are awesome. And you have done so much as a country.
Yes.
And the world, especially the world's democracies, will be really much poorer if you guys don't get your act together. Because a world in which we need to start relying on China, this is not a world where human rights matter.
Yeah.
This is not a world where democracy matters. And like, I feel kind of weird saying this, not being an American, but like, America's really great. And I think Winston Churchill was right when he said, America does the right thing after trying everything else first. So could you please finish trying the other stuff?
That's a very large tone change. The reason why I wanted you to listen carefully, because that's the first time I've heard a liberal speak positively about America in quite some time. And this, I don't think, was on accident. This was on purpose. Slow roll Freeland out to American audiences and let them know how awesome they are. Because I've been told how awful America's been for the past year. Can't deal with them. Can't work with them. They want to own us. They want to take our resources. All of it. But to come and say, America's so awesome. America's great. We want to work with you. We can't be driven into the arms of China. A couple issues I have with that. You don't have to be driven into the arms of China. You're choosing to. That's one. Two, you're also admitting that you're a leech. Sorry, you're a leech. Instead of focusing on what we can do here at home and improving our sovereignty and relying on ourselves to get things done, you're choosing to see who else can we live off of? You're a leech. The liberal policy around foreign products, our liberal policy around foreign policy has been to leech off of whoever will allow us to. Doesn't matter if they have human rights or not. As long as we can bring in cheap EVs, it's all good. That's what we're seeing. And that's an admittance there. And then secondly, America's so great. This is a slow roll. Get ready for Mark Carney and the Liberal Party to start softening their stance on the U.S. over the coming months. Because one of two things are going to happen. Either Carney's going to go hard, and try to get Trump to announce he's going to tear up CUSMA, USMCA. I don't think it's going to happen. He's going to try to. Or he realizes it's unlikely that Trump will actually go ahead and do that. And for him to get a majority mandate, he needs to get a win on CUSMA. Thus, you need to start talking positively with the Americans and start being adults again and stop throwing temper tantrums to placate to a crowd here in Canada so you can win an election. The problem with that, though, is you've spent a year brainwashing your base into being American-hating bots. I don't know if they're going to turn that quick. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm underestimating how programmed the Liberal Party has these people. But an assault like that on the mind of people to be programmed to hate America the way that the Liberals have done doesn't just change overnight. So we'll see. Carney may have painted himself into a corner, and it's an extremely important point right now for the Conservatives to focus on the affordability issues, focus on helping Canadians, and trying to really show goodwill in getting affordability solved, working with the Liberals to get that forward. And by that, Poilievre will look more prime ministerial, look like a leader, and look like he's in it to take care of Canadians and Canada as a whole. And you'll start seeing improvements in polling and all of that. So, that is the show. That's the show. Wild. Let's hit some super chats as we end off here. Mark Blanco says, I wish I could share a map of who is dominating resources globally. The entire globe is behind just one country. That's actually a great point, Mark. I would love to see that. I got to look into that. Thank you for the heads up on that. I want to look into that as well. John Gotti says, isn't it ironic that Vashti Kapellos interviewed Kristen Hillman, former Canadian trade rep to the U.S., and she said she honestly didn't know if CUSMA would be renegotiated, a bit of fear-mongering maybe? Potentially, 100%. Surprising how that all works, isn't it? Rhonda saying, thank you for joining us today. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate you giving the good vibes to all the homies. And thank you all so much for joining the show today. The chat's been great. General chat's been awesome. Super chats have been fantastic. And I feel like today was a good show. I'm happy to get back into the groove of things. Live stream today, this morning. Have my standalone video this afternoon. We're going to cover what's happening, I'm sure, further developments, I'm sure, from this Globe and Mail article, and what's going to take place and set the tone moving forward for the week. You guys are awesome. Thank you all so much. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going to work, be doing some reps at the gym, or just actually at work, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace.